All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Laszlo. This is a Flux Ecosystem meeting, probably the first one. It's about Flux UIs. And I think the origin of this meeting has been on KubeCon, when we were at the Birds of the Feather session. It was very apparent that there are like 3 focus groups where people have interest in doing UIs for Flux and other areas as well. And I think we've met with some of you on that little circle, and then later on I think there were some DMs going back and forth and stuff, and I think it was just an idea to come together and just introduce ourselves, tell who are we, who we represent, what's our interest in the Flux UI. We are probably not end users, so it's more like a vendor things gonna be said, I think. And then if you have any UI already or some initiative that you have took, or you have some code or some open source project, please feel free to share. And I think one goal for this meeting to identify possible collaborations in the future. And there's already somebody raising a hand, and I think it's Andrey.
Yeah, maybe Georg already introduced us. We are Ionix. We are a startup and building platform based on FluxCD, totally based on FluxCD. This platform is intended to run managed services, virtual machines, and tenant Kubernetes clusters using native Kubernetes ecosystem. This project called CozyStack, it is open source and it is on GitHub, and it is also intended to donate to CNCF. Right now, we are waiting for a response from them. Thank you.
Pretty cool. Can you share maybe the URLs in chat so we have them for future reference? And I realize that we should.
Sure, I'll send it. It is CozyStack.io.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Maybe you want to share like a GitHub URL as well if you have one. Yeah, there is one. Yes.
Sure. Thanks.
Pretty cool. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. My name is Joaquim. I'm a principal engineering manager at Microsoft, and I'm also the lead engineer in the Headlamp project. So Headlamp is a Kubernetes UI. If you don't know about it, we are. It's a pluggable UI. So one of our goals this cycle is to have a UI for gitops, and that includes Flux as well, of course. So that's yeah, and a colleague of mine should also join soon, but that's basically our interest as well in participating.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Puja from Giant Swarm. We basically manage a very big open source product that helps big enterprises deploy and manage Kubernetes-based developer platforms. So the basis of open source comes from us, and then the developers and the platform teams inside the companies build the rest. Flux is basically a part of this system for the last 3 or more years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marian, Martin, a bit more.
About 4 years.
4 years, right? Yeah. So yeah. Flux is basically our GitOps engine of choice, and in UIs we've been looking for things that solve our customers' issues. Martin and Marian have tried out much more than I have, and can maybe explain our different approaches. We've both looked into building a bit of our own in Backstage, as the Backstage plugin was not enough for us, but also like trying out the various UIs that are already out there, including Martin actually getting the enterprise version of Weave GitOps running, and seeing where everyone is.
So I can follow on from Puja. I'm Martin. I'm solution architect for the developer experience team at Giant Swarm. My role is basically to interact with the customers, find out what their needs are, and try and find products to fulfill their needs. Also to give them guidance and advice towards like fulfilling their end goals. As Puja mentioned, I've tried out a few of the UIs. First one I tried out was the original open source gitops UI. Tried Weave Enterprise. I also actually, when that became open source, I tried to upgrade the entire UI side just to get some hands-on experience with TypeScript because I didn't have it. That was actually successful. I've also tried out Capacitor a little bit, and I have really a set of requirements coming from our customers as to what they want from UIs. That's pretty much it.
Maybe I can complete the Giant Swarm round then. I am Marian, a UX designer, and my main concern is, well, since GitOps is a big piece in the puzzle of platforms of our customers, well, basically following on every development that helps bring visibility into this area for our customers. Thanks.
Hello, my name is George. It's very nice to see colleagues here. I'm a companion of Andrey Kvaps in Ionics, and also I know Laszlo because we met in Budapest, and also it's very nice to see here guys from Headlamp because I'm reaching them with a lot of issues they are fixing, so it's a very good point to collaborate. And I'm using Flux for many years. Thanks to Stefan for this great product and to the team of WeaveWorks for building it and making this community driven. Yeah. And I integrated Flux in many environments because I have some consultancy and a lot of clients around the globe, and they are very happy. Unfortunately, Flux has a very steep learning curve, so sometimes it's difficult for customers to understand what's going under the hood, and they want to have some nice interface where we are getting to the necessity of some nice UI. I used Weave GitOps UI to this moment, but I'm looking for something better, and I think we could do something like this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is everyone introduced themselves besides me? So
I think I'm remaining. So yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Ashu this side, I work on the headlamp project. And yeah, we've been looking for this GitOps plugin work. I mostly work on the front end side of it and with the plugins as well. So yeah, we've been planning to work on a GitOps plugin. So yeah, that's why we are here. And as Joaquim mentioned, that Flux is something that we are looking forward to have a plugin for.
Thank you. And to just let me introduce myself as well. I'm Laszlo. I'm behind the Capacitor project. We are a small startup, 4 people. Capacitor started out like a little after hours project, but suddenly when Weave was closing down, it got some attention, and currently it's at 400 stars on GitHub, or like 375. And I just feel that in general, like people are really waiting for a Flux UI, and it's really been of interest of many people. And I also see that there are different use cases that a Flux UI need to serve. We are more about developers, but the operations people has also expressed various feature requests and so on. So we are kind of need to figure out like who we want to be, and also some of the issues from the Weave enterprise UI just started to move over to the capacitor issue board, which suddenly the whole thing is a little bit scary. So right now we are at some crossroads figuring out like how to continue, what to support, what to focus on, because the landscape has dramatically changed since we started. So we need to kind of grow up and figure out what to do with this. And that is part of the reason I'm interested in this meeting. And yeah, so that's about capacitor and myself. And if you have any topic, I think we can start discussing. Or if you don't have any like very particular thing, maybe you can express your motivation as well. Like what is your goal with this meeting? Like what you would like to get out, and maybe it's just meet nice people, which is, I think it's very cool. But if you have a very particular thing or vision that you want to, put out in the world, we can maybe discuss those things as well.
Okay, let me start. So what is my motivation? I want to bring the best solution to my clients and satisfy their needs. Not depending if it's internal customer, like some developers in big enterprise, or some external customers for whom I providing some consultancy. Also, I do not want to abandon WeaveWorks legacy, because guys from WeaveWorks made a very great stuff, like implementing cluster API, pipelines, things and other. So finally, probably we could arrange something like developer portal based on top of Flux. And I know that there are such solution very similar built on top of Argo, built by epam. It's called EDP, or it has another name, and it really increases the delivery speed very much and makes the delivery process robust. So I think we will finish something like this. Or otherwise, we can focus just on Flux, on its entities like customizations, Helm releases, and cover only some basic functions. And it also would be a viable project and help customers to manage these clusters. I will post a link, if you don't mind, to EDP solution, because it could be a source for some inspiration what we would like to have.
Yes, sounds good. I shared a link there because you said EDP from epam, and they do have a plugin for Headlamp. We've been working with their developers in the sense of offering some support when they need it on the public Slack, and for a while now. Yeah, from our side, what I expect from here is basically to understand. I'm not a Flux Flux developer, but it's basically to understand what I think George here mentioned. To understand what is the dynamic, what people want. Like I said, the gitops is something that people have asked us in Headlamp for a while now, because of course you're doing like day-to-day operations and stuff, and they tell us it's nice that you have an editor, but nobody uses the editor, right, for hot changing stuff. So having that panel built into a UI that already lets you see what's going on in the cluster and going to execing into a pod or to a container, something like that, and to do all those operations that you would otherwise use CozyStack or some other UI for, is definitely a good I think a good feature for many users. Yeah, and that's so we are only now building. So we have plugins, but we are only now building what we call the plugin catalog, right? So the idea is that if you deploy Headlamp, you ship it with the plugins that you prefer. But if you use the desktop version, then you as the user are in control. So you should install whatever plugins you want for yourself. And the idea And then on top of this, that's the only reason why I'm explaining this, is that we have also some plugins that we ship with the headlamp base, right? So we have this notion of headlamp base, that there's no plugins, and then we have headlamp that you download, and there's some plugins there. I think the gitops plugin is so important that we want to make it one of those that we ship with, right? At least that's my intention now. Haven't really discussed this step with the the project manager, but or the product manager, but I think it's one of those that we feel it's so important that we really want to make it like a first class thing in there.
Yeah, I think for us, the most important part is to see, is there going to be a viable like Flux UI in the future? Can we like agree on some like some core that several people will be working on? Because I think at least from our side, we don't want to own anything here, and we don't want to build our own. We don't have enough people. We're also still quite small, maybe slightly bigger than Gimlet, but also not very big like other companies in this space. So we would rather like to see something open source where we can also contribute in both kind of use case side, but also code. Ideally, like I bet we will not find a single interface, right? There will be this plugin for a headlamp, for example. We will most probably, there will be this backstage plugin. There is one already, maybe not a great one, but something should be there. And at least one of the goals I think we could agree on would be, could we have some shared libraries between them? So could we like a share code where we are at least not rebuilding everything, where we interface with Flux in every single part, where in every single UI. Maybe from the use case side, there is, I think, two use cases we've been seeing. One is, I think this is also where Laszlo, you're going towards, is kind of the introspection of GitOps resources and like finding errors and going debugging also, and also getting this like confirmation everything is right or everything is not, and how can I make my next step. And the other use case that we've been seeing that we've not been seen solved in most UIs these days is kind of a more a multi-environment thing, where like usually a team owns, even if you go from a developer perspective and not the platform team's perspective, you usually own more than a single piece of software, and you own it in more than a single environment. And you need to somehow, you oftentimes have this need of managing this across environments, knowing where am I outdated? Is it breaking in a certain environment? Is it breaking, I don't know, in China? Do I need to do something about it? These kind of use cases we're seeing much more. Martin, you had much more from the user side. I think you were talking to some of our customers more deeply about it, right?
Yeah, so a big part of what they were actually looking at is being able, as Puja mentioned, is being able to track across environments. So really having that pipeline mode where you start your deployments out into development environment, you can then track it going through to stage and into production, know where your deployments are failing, and be able to tell at a glance if something's going wrong, having that high level view, and then being able to drill down into like, well, why is this failing? Which part of the component? And maybe even going down as far as being able to access the logs based on the permissions that you've got for that system. And this is another part that is really important to some of our customers, is really having that permissions model of only being able to see the resources inside the cluster that I've got permissions to be able to see. And without that, if you start giving blanket permissions, especially in a multi-tenant environment, you're going to start having people able to view information about other people's deployments that you shouldn't necessarily have access to. And this is a key component for many of our customers.
Maybe to add one very specific thing to what Puja and Martin said, one thing that is important for us is being able to link a UI in very specific views, very specific selections from some portal. So imagine you're looking at a component in Backstage in your catalog context is a particular component. You're seeing a list of deployments where this component is deployed, and there is this one failing, and there should be one click giving you the UI in a new tab showing you exactly Flux related details that you need in order to understand, as Martin said, what has failed. So the hyperlinking aspect is a very particular one. The good old hyperlink.
There are quite a few things I could latch on, like maybe so we are now diving deep into specific issues, and like the permission models you guys mentioned. I think we have been talking about this on KubeCon as well. So there are like two schools here, like two approaches. One is that you completely impersonating the user's Kubernetes access details, like you are using the Kubernetes RBAC to limit what users see through the UI. And if you are like a very thin client, like Headlamp is, for example, and I think the Giant Swarm one is that you basically look through your own kube contacts. So there is no even like theoretical possibility that you oversee someone else's resources or things that you don't have RBAC for. So that's one way to do that. And then the other one is kind of if you have like a server-side component, which is like has like an elevated permission, and then you have to kind of have your own RBAC in your own system to kind of not to allow this privilege escalation, basically. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, just on my own side, like Capacitor has a backend, and it's prone to this kind of privilege escalation things. And I'm more and more getting closer to the other approach after talking to you guys. So if there is one positive aspect of talking to each other, I think it's definitely this one.
For us, this was one of the main reasons why we switched. We actually started with Argo and switched to Flux because we found that like we and our customers don't want to maintain two permission models for this. And, like maintaining a single permission model was like very beneficial. And I'm getting like our security is breathing down our neck already. Marian and I have been fighting quite a lot recently about exactly these permission models, because as soon as we have a component that has more elevated privileges, and it's usually running inside the management plane, we're getting into a lot of trouble with security.
Also, I think what you said, Puja, is that we don't want to own anything. That's kind of resonated with me. One thing that I realized that this Flux UI thing is kind of larger than us, or like larger than Capacitor, or larger than one team maybe. And the more I interact with Stefan, and the more he's telling me use cases that I don't know about, I realize that Flux is a very generic tool, and different people use it differently. So maybe going with like a very general purpose Flux UI, it requires quite some dedication. I think that was one conclusion of mine. Maybe others can share it as well.
Yeah, as someone who is looking at this from an outside perspective, more like somebody who wants to give this capability to users rather than being a user myself. I think that, yeah, if there are different use cases, of course, it's going to be difficult to find a tool that's going to cover everything. I feel like what would be nice, and I think ties into this idea of having maybe some shared components, which I think is going to be, it's usually more complicated than it seems, is maybe having a shared set of requirements, right? So if we have those, and then it's like, okay, I want to have that, and I want to have that in a dedicated UI that you publish out there, and everybody has this, you know, whatever permissions I gave to this client there. Then you need something, but you have the requirements to do that, and then maybe with some shared components, or maybe of course, like I said, technically this is not as easy as it usually is when it comes to UI. Right, is saying, okay, we have all these requirements in this, for example, plugin for headlamp in another example, and this follows RBAC, like you said, Laszlo, and maybe some other thing. But if we have this set of requirements that, okay, you know, most people want this, then we have some use cases here and there, which is the case where you would, I guess, extend one of these open source tools, right, to be able to add these extra capabilities. That would be very interesting, right? Because then we could, even if we have several solutions kind of doing the same thing, but in different environments or so, we would be sure that, okay, we have this set of requirements that will be fulfilled by them, right?
Yeah, it could also be that like certain requirements are like a base, and then we have extended requirements that are kind of like implemented in some of the interfaces, and some not, because I guess some will be out of scope for some projects, depending also on use cases that they want to serve directly, or depending on things that they solve on a different level. I don't know if like others might be solving things on a GitHub level, and then they're like, I don't need a Flux UI, I bring everything into GitHub PRs.
On the shared components track, I think like reading custom resources from Flux is not a difficult thing. You know, you list ham releases, you list OCI repositories, and so on. Where I found myself spending the most time was actually to figure out their state. Like all these different custom resources have their list of conditions, and then like a ready condition, or like a reconciling condition, and so on. And I found myself writing a lot of dump code, like if-else statements, and I kind of don't have the full overview of all the possible states and all the possible source types as either. So I think like shared knowledge, or like how Flux really works, is on the surface it's very trivial, but if you try to implement a UI and then you want to have a consistent result, it's actually it's not that easy. So maybe actually, like if we ever gonna have like a meeting, like a recurring meeting like this, or like a shared library or something, I would definitely enjoy working with the Flux team, understanding all these resources and their state conditions and so on. And maybe if you can capture that in a shared library, yeah, that would be very helpful, I think. That's just a random idea.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and that reminded me that one of the ideas we entertained towards this idea of gitops plugin for headlamp was actually making it a gitops and not a Flux plugin, and trying to cover both Argo and Flux, right? That would involve having a UI that is shared in most cases. Then I'm pretty sure that there's going to be something that needs to be done that the other does not support, for example. But that would be, you know, one of the things would be, okay, all of them have a state or states that needs to be expressed. So having this idea is the same with an AI plugin that we're developing. The idea is that you have kind of backends, right? Backends not in the sense of backend, but in the sense of libraries that will implement a common interface, right? And it will give you, okay, if you need the state, what is the state right now to be displayed? And then each implementation of Flux backends and or Argos if we wanted to support something like that together, would have to implement those, right? That interface. So yeah, so that's definitely something interesting. When I said complicated to share, I was of course referring to the actual UI, because then you get into the notion of, okay, so which kind of UI? Is it going to be React? Is it going to be something else? And which library to actually display the stuff in the UI within, even if it uses React, which library do we use? And those is where you have 100 million solutions in JavaScript, and everybody loves their own. And and I don't think a lot of overlap will happen in that case. But yeah, but that would be nice, like having a client, not a client, it's not really a client library, but that sort of abstraction into a library that if now there is a new backend for Flux every week, instead of going and having to do the same, like how do I get the state of this thing? Is it a CR? Is it a million things I need to consult? And having that duplicated across 10 solutions, having one that we share together would be nice. Yeah.
I am a little skeptical about the abstraction, to be honest. Like you mentioned, like across Flux and Argo. I think GitOps is so undefined, or at least that's just my idea, or like understanding. There are so many ways and different structures you can set up your customizations and sources and stuff. That if you are not opinionated, like it's difficult to work on a higher level abstractions. And that was actually my first reaction when Puja was mentioning a multi-environment, or maybe it was multi-cluster things. It's different people do it slightly differently. So I'm like, it's not that easy to really elevate the abstraction of GitOps. It's very random, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that I will trust you. You obviously have much more experience in GitOps than I do. But so like I said, that was one of the ideas we entertained. We want to have a GitOps plugin, but that for now, for us that means Flux. I would like to have also one for Argo. If that's going to be in the end the same plugin, and then you have to configure it and it shows two different things, then that's something to be decided. But yeah, I didn't want to like derail this into, oh, okay, let's bring Argo over as well, right? I think we can focus on Flux, right?
Just to interject real quick for a second, I put something in the chat about the conditions pattern from one of the Flux maintainers. This is great discussion, and I love the idea of a shared library that multiple UIs can use. This is Kingdon.
Kingdon, this is a brilliant resource. Thank you very much.
Cool.
So if you want to go like talk about tech stacks or something, like, and like how many projects are we talking about, like right here on this meeting, it's basically headlamp with Golang and TypeScript and React, if I'm correct. It's capacitor with Golang and like React without TypeScript. And you guys have Puja, what's your stack?
I think Marian, you can the only one that we are self-developing is a backstage plugin, which is then TypeScript and TypeScript, right? Just
React, yeah.
And React,
React.
yes.
They have a very similar stack to what we do actually, except for the backend.
Cool. I actually don't want to make like decisions or conclusions. I don't want to draw any conclusions, but TypeScript seems to be like a common thing we all have, even though I hate it. It's like it's not too bad after looking at the headlamp code base, to be honest.
I have my own opinions, but I don't have time to share them with you about about why we should never touch JavaScript. But yeah.
Okay. Anybody knows anything about the Weave enterprise UI? I know it's open source, but I don't know if anybody is actively maintaining it or anybody's trying to.
As far as I'm aware, nobody's actively maintaining it. When it first became open source, I was looking very closely at it because I really thought up until KubeCon that this was really going to be the direction that enterprise UIs would go. So I started picking it apart, really trying to get to grips with how it worked, what it did. This is what led me to, because I knew nothing about UI code, at least not for the last 20 years, I kind of like tried to take that step of upgrading it and really understand how it all hinged together. The language there again is React with TypeScript on that. Like I say, nobody's maintaining it to the best of my knowledge, but there is a lot of components within that I think would be a shame to lose. Maybe not in their current form, but certainly the ideas I think would be beneficial, if not now, but in the future.
Yeah, I think the one use case that the enterprise UI, or like the more generalistic use case that the enterprise UI was adding, that I guess most of us are not looking yet into, is they were also looking at not read only, right? It's like certain write things, certain types of like templating, certain types of like packaging, adding functionality on top of Flux. Question is like,
wasn't to the cluster, but what it did do was close the loop. So you could see into the cluster and then commit back to Git. And I thought that was in itself was a powerful feature of the UI. So you can look at what you've got and you say, right, now I need a new one of these things, whatever that might be. There'd be a template there for you, and you'd fill out that template and it will create a pull request back into GitHub or whatever Git backend you had configured.
Yeah, and exactly that with the cluster creation workflow was the classic example that the WeaveWorks UI achieved, that I haven't seen any other UI approach. That's a good synopsis. Thank you, Martin.
Yep.
There's a cluster bootstrap controller in there also. That's another useful component that I've had occasion to think about recently, which is really a simple job controller that waits for a signal from GitOps cluster resource. That's just a slim wrapper around a CAPI. So the purpose of the wrapper is so that we can extend and accept clusters from other sources besides CAPI, understanding that CAPI isn't necessarily the most popular solution. That's a little bit about the Weave GitOps Enterprise UI for folks who haven't seen it. And also just a note, if you found any links to the docs, there is a new docs site. So docs.gitops.weave.works. If you go there, you'll find there's a SSL cipher error right now. But if you take that docs off the front, gitops.weave.works will get you to the docs. So no one can really mistake this for a new maintenance effort. The original docs site is down, but for accessibility's sake, we've brought the website back.
That's useful to know. Thank you.
And this stuff was all open source when the company was closed. If I've been told to mention that if you find any MPL license headers anywhere, please report them because it should all be Apache 2 now.
All right. I was just silent so people can inject whatever they have on their minds. But I think if nothing comes to your mind or you don't have anything immediate to share, maybe this was a good first occasion just to see who is interested, who is showing up. And yeah, usual suspects. I thank you for all of you to join. It was really good to have you here. And yeah, I think we identified a few things. Anybody wants to add the final note or?
Just thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
Do we have anywhere, because I think the both Joachim and also I think Laszlo, you agreed, like having like a list of use cases or requirements that we could collaboratively work on? Should we like start a Google Doc and just add some things? We're happy to provide like what we have in our GitHub issues and stuff.
We don't have anything right now, but if anybody, whoever is the first one, just starts a doc and then shares with the group. I think all of you are on this email thread that was started.
And we have the Slack, the community
exactly,
Slack.
Exactly. There is the Flux Ecosystem Slack on the CNCF channel, or like the other way around. Yeah.
We can host a doc. We have CNCF neutral space. If anyone wants to own the doc, I think I can move it into the space for you. But whoever owns the doc will own the responsibility of
Exactly.
accepting invitations or editor requests.
I am very happy to be the bookkeeper here, so that's not really a huge effort. So I can be the owner. I'm just not promising to write there too much too soon. So if anybody else wants to share things there, yeah, just request the right permissions.
Let's do that.
I don't know if we want to create, this is sort of a housekeeping thing, but should we create a playlist on the YouTube channel for ecosystem meetings, or would you like to be in the dev meeting or the bug scrub playlist?
I think for now, dev meeting is just fine. And
Okay.
as soon as there's going to be a second ecosystem meeting of any sort, then I think we can start a playlist.
Perfect.
Thank you, Kingdom, for all these. We don't know how this works. All right. If there's nothing more, I think everybody gets 14 minutes extra for their day, and we say goodbye.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, folks. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for hosting.
Thank you. See you guys.
Right.
Thanks.